No one's investing in an idea unless you're a proven success with multiple exits. Otherwise, you have to build it, you have to do it. Israel is not a place that you can scale. If someone makes a product here, the idea is that it's going to be sold abroad. I think it's just this, it's a roll up your sleeve nation. You roll up your sleeves, get to work. Again, because it's direct, if it's bad, everyone's going to tell you it's really bad.
Welcome to The Diligent Observer, where we help angel investors see what most miss. I'm your host, Andrew, and every week we explore what works, what doesn't, and why through conversations with experienced startup investors and operators. My guest today is Ben Woolf, a UK-born, Kellogg Northwestern-trained founder and operator who started his career in banking before diving headfirst into the startup world, where he lived both the highs of a successful exit and the hard lessons of building from scratch. Ben went on to work in VC and in high-tech strategy consulting, and today he drives growth for Israel265 Media in Tel Aviv. Now, in this episode, we explore why Israel punches so far above its weight in R&D, what the roll up your sleeves and prove it investment culture means for angels evaluating deals from this part of the world, and where Ben sees the biggest opportunity for outside investors. I hope you enjoy learning from Ben as much as I did. Ben, thank you for being with me today.
Thank you for having me, Andrew. Really appreciate it.
Okay, so Ben, we were just talking about this, and I am continuing to be impressed by how varied your background is. I feel like you have a really thoughtful perspective on a number of categories. I mean, night vision and glasses, and it's startup building and investing, and I mean, all these things. You've also lived in a pile of different places, which is really fun. So a lot of places I'm excited to go with this conversation. Where I will start is, what are you currently excited about?
I'm excited about a lot. I'm also pessimistic about a lot too. Because sometimes we see these, I did one sector of my focus for a long time was automotive. And for years, they talk about driving driverless cars and trucks, fleet systems, software systems, and radar, LIDAR, night vision, all sorts, for companies like Waymo and Daimler. And it's a real slow burn. And it's a very exciting industry. And we're now seeing the cars, right? When you go to LA and other areas. But so I'm always a little pessimistic about how long things will really take. And I know for myself, when I'm using AI platforms, I'm trying to create certain agents and it's still hard. But in general, I'm really excited about the direction AI is going. I'll be honest, I could not have forecasted what happened in the last 2 years. And I think a lot of us didn't. A lot of us thought we knew what AI was, and then all these softwares came out from the major companies, and we didn't have a clue at what we actually going to do. And now all I'm trying to do is think, how big can I ask questions? Am I held back by my own mental limitations of what they're providing me? Because we ask AI to do things like we're used to in Google search, but we need to get out of that mindset and ask really big questions and ask really tough questions and create systems and get it to create systems for us and be bigger and bolder at that.
Can you give an example of like how that plays out practically? A good example you gave of the search engine. Okay, it's just there. What are some other ways you're thinking about kind of asking bigger questions?
Well, think about when general research is find X company, and then you're searching for an email and you're searching for some data on the company or a person who works there, right? Instead now, and then I'm using that for you're saving into an Excel to a CRM system, and then once it's in the CRM system, then you automate emails, etc. Now you can ask it for the whole process. I can build a customer profile with parameters that I set, all in the same prompt, then also include, I want you to research 100 of these in one go. Then I want you to find the contact information of each one of these. Then I want you to write the email for each one of these. And I want you to connect my Gmail and prep them and put them into my CRM or into my communications. And then I want you to be sending those emails. How can we think larger for it to actually run the whole operations of what we're trying to do and think bigger in that sense? more than just a Google search. So it's more agentic. Agentic AI is interesting, and I'm looking forward to when it really gets going. And I think we're not there yet. I think we're still in a transition phase. We're excited about the visual aspects of AI. Also AI, not just in business, but also for medicine, for finance. I think people don't need as much help from financial institutions when you can just get Gemini or ChatGPT to calculate everything for you, your whole investment portfolio, forecast it with all the interest rates and everything you need, and then you can find everything for you. It's very cool.
Cool and terrifying and mysterious all at once, depending on where you sit and what part of that equation you are. From a consumer standpoint, to your point, I mean, incredible the level of firepower available to you that once was not. If you are the financial institution, or you're the financial advisor, or the healthcare professional, you have a whole other set of concerns, which are important to talk about as well. So yeah, to your point, we're in the early innings, and I share your excitement to think along with many startup investors. Well, tell me more about your current ecosystem. So you, over the years, have been very involved in kind of the Israeli business ecosystem, and that's not something that many of our listeners are familiar with, certainly not something that I'm familiar with. So I'd love to just hear a little bit more about how that conversation is playing out locally there in Israel in the business scene. If there's any nuance, and obviously there's some interesting geopolitical things happening right now that are potentially worth talking about. But from a business standpoint, I'd love to just hear more about what's happening on the ground right now and how AI is transforming the Israeli ecosystem.
Israel is very unique in its high-tech sector. First of all, we're in the top 3 of R&D per capita in the world. We're in the top 5 most successful startups in the world on the NASDAQ. We have some of the largest companies all have R&D centers in Israel, think tanks. And acquisition-wise, we've had some of the most and largest acquisitions around the world. What's unique about Israel and its tech ecosystem is, first of all, there's this culture in the country, which is very different to the UK and the US, which I'm just referencing them because I'm more familiar with them, than I am Europe or Asia and other continents. Where, because the country was founded in a complicated way and there was war, it meant that the culture is very focused. And there's a word in Hebrew called Tachlis, which is essentially cut the crap, if I can say that. And it means get straight to the business. What's the meat and potatoes? What's the main thing here? They don't need the fluff. No one needs the fluff. They want, how am I getting results? What are the results? Can we make it? Let's make it. And it became part of the culture to push. And there's an urgency because all of these things are happening in the political landscape. It creates a lot of urgency amongst the people to push forward and drive things forwards. And what is also unique about Israel, beyond the culture, is the relationship with the military. Military and defensive technologies and the army are wholesomely integrated into the technology ecosystem. So if someone starts a company, you have access to the front line of technologies and resources and companies, and they are proactively engaged in helping startups to grow, to do R&D tests, to try different models. And that creates a very powerful unity within the country. It's not just a startup and a corporate and government and military all working together. So that can create some really incredible technologies. And because it's a country that's very focused, we have R&D centers from Microsoft, Intel, NVIDIA, as well as companies that have started here that are fueling knowledge into the country, as well as the education systems are again, tightly knitted. It's a small country. So everything is very close and very knitted. Everyone will know everyone. And a lot of these really amazing companies are from guys who served in the army in the highest levels, and then they got into university, and because they went straight into the army, they become very serious guys. They go to university, they're not really partying. They are getting a study from these professors and then going out because they want to just pioneer. So there's also this vision. And I think it's part of the country, this vision of, we want to help the world. And I know, again, I'm separating politics, and I don't want to discuss that because I want to think about the business sector and the tech sector and how we think and how the country thinks in that area. Is we want to help progress the world forwards. We want to help the world progress in health, to have better medical care, that you can take care of yourself. We want the world to have better agriculture, more trees, more forests, more oxygen, better ways of sustainable farming, sustainable living, sustainable being. We want better cities. So we want better autonomy. We want better transportation systems, and not just within a city or a country, but also exporting and importing. You know, there are areas we're really bad at. We're really bad at clothing, retail, e-commerce. Those are not strengths of Israel. We are not good at those. We don't manufacture those things, but we're really good with these other things, which are very fundamental. You know, we're very good also with law, and finance. We're okay. We're not the best at finance. We don't have. We're not a financial hub, to say the least. Not like New York or London, actually, or Frankfurt. And I think that's what makes the atmosphere very unique. That we live within that culture, and then there's that unity, and then there's a bigger vision with what we're trying to do. And then because we've had very successful in high tech, the VC here is venture capital is quite good, and they tend to take a look at business economics and try to really understand how these economics of this company will affect the world, not just to increase the amount of revenue and money within an industry, but how it will disrupt that industry also. So I've spoken to startups, venture capital firms, that they've seen amazing startups that could make a lot of money, but they realize that the money that company makes will reduce the money in the industry, because so you got to think, how is it creating a blue ocean that removes competition and drives the industry forward, or is it disrupting it in a way that's unaffected? So, there's considerations to make in a larger macroeconomic scale. I'm diverging.
It's good. It's good. So it's interesting to me, Ben, about, as you're sharing, I mean, you have literally built startups in Chicago and in London, and now here. Like, you have sort of experienced this in very different ecosystems. Like, what? I think this overlap between military-driven thinking with this culture of just get it done, get to the point, very direct. Walk me through what it looks like, what it feels like to actually start a startup, not necessarily a small business, but like a startup, high growth type company in Israel that, in your experience, is different and unique and distinct. I could guess at a few things, but like versus doing it in Chicago, for example, like what makes that experience feel so different if I was to do that in Israel?
I think some of it's a bit harder in some ways. The US way of, I love the way USA does business, and I loved living there, and I love the optimism and being so optimistic and having big visions and big
unbridled
goals, big
optimism
ideas.
over here.
Like, yeah, that could be huge. Let's do it. Here's cash. Make it happen.
You just described Silicon Valley, man.
You know, you're the guy. Go do it. Go make that amazing thing and just do it. You know, and I grew up in the UK, which is very conservative, very pessimistic. They're a little bit held back. They're reserved. So the way they think about things, they think, okay, well, if you do that, when will I get my return on the money? Will you spend the money wisely? Is it going to come through okay? You know, they're a little bit slower as well. versus again the US idea of just funnel it in and just go for it. If you blow the money, putting 150% effort in, because that will open the door to something else. And I I ultimately love one and I love the other two. The other is really valuable and the other is also very valuable. That together combined, they could be the powerhouses. Israel, I guess it doesn't have the optimism so freely. You know, we look at big ideas and think, okay, this is a really big idea, but it really has to be calculatable. You have to be able to somewhat prove that's a very big idea, and you really need to prove it. I think and getting investment is always a challenge, and it's a relationship, and it's a growing pitch deck or growing product or growing market of or customer base, right? But Israel is a little bit more on the conservative side, somewhat similar to the UK, I think, where they want to see how you're going to get those returns and what it's going to look like, but they really want practical, and they want to know very much against the competition. How do you really, really stand out against competition? And any investor is going to be looking at competition to understand the landscape fully. But I've been in many potential investments that we moved on with, but we didn't do, just because we felt that someone else was doing it. And it wasn't special enough. They really look for unique, special, and they look for really intellectual, technological, big data. Big data is a really big field here. They really love that, to see that it's technologically advanced in a way that other people are just not thinking about it, going about it a different way. And again, cutting those corners means that when you're looking at investments and looking at these companies, they tend to be pretty simple ideas in mind. I'm going to do this, this, and this. There isn't the fluff that other companies are bringing in other countries. I find they're very direct. So again, that directness creates better companies, and the investors are looking for that.
So would you say there's a bias for more later stage opportunities? Is it harder kind of on the earlier stages, idea stage, very early traction?
Yeah, you got to build it. You've got to push it out to people. You got to get customers. There isn't much. Look, if you're a second, third time founder and you've had some successes, someone's going to you'll get money from someone. That's not, if you're a first time founder, you have to build it and prove it. No one's investing in an idea unless you're a proven success with multiple exits. Otherwise, you have to build it and you have to do it. And I think in America, sometimes people will invest in the idea. In the UK, they'll invest in a well thought out plan. And here they'll invest in the prototype that's been built and been used and tested. And now they want to invest in prototype V2.
So that's a huge gap. Like that transition kills 90% of startups, like won't even make it to that point. So how is, like in your experience, how is the local community thinking about incubating and cultivating those ideas? Does that happen elsewhere and then they come to Israel when they're ready for that kind of scale up investment? Or like how are companies getting to that point locally?
There are incubators and accelerator programs, but again, to get into them, very rarely someone will be at an idea stage and then come in. I think it's just this, it's a roll up your sleeve nation. You roll up your sleeves, get to work, make it happen, go out there, embarrass yourself, get in front of people, get people to sign up, get them to try it. Because it's direct, if it's bad, everyone's going to tell you it's really bad. And I know that as a founder, you go through a process of people saying, oh, that can't be done, or that doesn't sound right, or that doesn't work. They don't necessarily do that. If they think that, I've met many people or friends who have started companies where some people didn't really understand what the business concept was, but investors were open to it. They were open to like, okay, maybe I just don't understand it. And That's my problem. But it's for me to try and understand, but it's also for you to try and prove it to me. I do, but personally, I believe that it needs to be very simple, clear, and understandable. I need to see clear business models of how they're going to make money, whatever the technology is, whatever they're doing, and how they're going to scale and market this product, and also the consumer behavior. How will consumers relate to this product? And if they start saying there's 5 steps to get to X, then there's no point. It needs to be very easy and flow with the way people think and behave in life. You don't want to teach people too much. So they can be open to ideas, but again, the directness there weeds out the people, and you just got to roll up your sleeves and do it. That's all it is.
A quick note before we continue the conversation. Alongside the Diligent Observer podcast and newsletter, I also run an outsourced operations service specifically built to serve angel networks. My team handles things like initial screening, social media, newsletter prep, platform management, and a whole lot more. The kinds of things that either aren't getting done or shouldn't be done by busy community leaders. If that sounds interesting to you, send me a note. Now, back to it. So what else do you feel like people often, particularly in the business community, tend to misunderstand about like the Israeli way of business, startups? I mean, I'm getting very clearly the roll up your sleeves, get it done, get to the point, come on. Like, what else do you feel like, particularly in the US, which for most of our audiences, folks don't understand about how business is done in Israel, particularly kind of in the startup and investment ecosystem?
Israel is not a place that you can scale. If someone makes a product here, the idea is that it's going to be sold abroad. There's very few real big startups. I mean, there are companies in Israel that grow within Israel, but those are lower down. If it's a tech company, anything within the field, it's always to be sold abroad, no matter what it is. That's always the context. We can test it, R&D, do that all here, and then to sell across. Doing business is really hard. I didn't grow up in Israel. I have Israeli parents, so I grew up with Israeli parents give me that mentality. But then I grew up as an Englishman that moved to America and then traveled across Europe. So I lost my whatever sovereign identity one has. I don't have a sovereign identity, but I'm here now. Israelis are really hard to work with. They're either really amazing or difficult. So really amazing because I sit with friends of mine he used to work at Google and now he's the CEO of one of these high-tech companies. I sit with him for an hour. He's just a powerhouse. He's so quick, so fast, so efficient. It's all just getting it done. And half an hour of him is more productive than 3 hours of a regular person. It's really just and we're working collaboratively on a document at the same time, just smashing it out so quickly. And it's so clear and concise. That's very helpful. So that side is unbelievably amazing. Then the other side is there's a lot of stubbornness and somewhat harshness. So Americans can be very sensitive, and it's kind of how you say something rather than what you say sometimes. And it could be, they want to be nice, they want to have the small talk, you want to do this, you want to look at something nice, and you want someone to be kind and spend money, blah, 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 or whatever it is. Here they don't care. And they don't care about that. They don't care if they're doing it nicely or not nicely. They don't care if they're spending money on it. They don't care if you're having a burger from a cheap place or an expensive place. They don't care what you're doing. Right. Okay. So there are subtleties and sensitivities that Israelis over the years have got much better at, and they understand that you need to treat people the way they want to be treated, and that's to make them feel comfortable, and that's easier for business. But also there's restrictions, governmental restrictions when an investor wants to invest in Israel. There's a lot of legal areas that need to be well understood to ease investments into the country. It's not as simple in some ways. And I think also it's a different culture. So not everyone knows what exists. I had an argument with someone that there isn't 24/7 banking here. I can't call someone 24/7. And they said, well, that doesn't exist anywhere. And I said, well, in the UK and the US, I can kind of call the bank whenever I want and get help from someone. And they're like, no. And then he goes, no, you can't. I was like, well, I lived there my whole life. I'm telling you I can. He goes, no, you can't. I was like, okay, sure, I can't. Fine. So there's an interesting dynamic.
So hearing you say that, I mean, one of the things that's fascinating to me is that a venture ecosystem has evolved at all in the Israeli context. Like given that of like this, because venture is a relatively new concept, at least in its current wrapping. The concept of investing in high risk, high return opportunities has always existed. Tons of examples throughout history of how this has been done. But in the modern context of like investing in startups that are probably going to fail, but just might become ludicrously impactful, like that is sort of a modern idea. So like, why do you think this has evolved, and like, where do you see kind of the Israeli early stage investment ecosystem going from here? I'm hearing a ton around this defense emphasis and the R&D expertise. And so certainly imagine that as a key component of this next phase. But like, I guess there's a few questions in here. Like, how did we get here from a cultural identity standpoint, given how modern this idea is, and that deeply entrenched, wonderful stubbornness, as you say. And where do you see things going from here?
The stubbornness works on the other way too, by the way. If they believe something can happen, there's no convincing otherwise. They're just going to continue doing it, which has its benefits. I think that it's just essential part of the ecosystem here. And Israel, in some ways, can be a little bit behind in terms of, we don't have one-day delivery, but we are on the forefront of other areas. And I think because the country, again, I don't want to get political or historical. It's a new country, but it's not a new country. So the historical foundations are here for thousands of years. But in the last 70 years, we finally came back to what is the homeland of Israel. And the people that entered the country and came back into the country, they were largely a mixture of different groups. It was groups and it was intellects too. Doctors, professors, financiers. The first wave of immigration was probably like Spain, Morocco. You've got Russia, right? And again, scientists, professors. Then you had immigration from large parts of Europe, and there were also people already living here as well. And then those who came from the Jews from other Middle Eastern countries were also kicked out. They had to come here as well. So it's like every part of the globe sourced back to the center here. And they lived in tents. You're talking about highly regarded people now living in tents. But they didn't live in tents thinking, what happened to me? They're thinking, what do we do with this? One of the first major things that happened in the country was the coastal line where Tel Aviv is, from the north down to the south. Tel Aviv is in the center part of it, was marshland that you couldn't build on and you couldn't grow crops on. Scientists then realized if you plant specific trees from the north to the south, it dries up the swamp. And by drying up the swamp, you can build foundations. By building foundations, you can build a city. Most of the land was desert. Now most of the land is forest, right? The irrigation systems that were created. And to fund all of this, you needed money and investment. So there was always an intellectual capacity within the country. And over the years, the finance has been catching up with that process and meeting it hand in hand. And then, the educational institutions, I think, Einstein was one of the chairmen of Hebrew University, which was one of the first universities in the country. So there's a lot of very interesting factors to what you're saying. it's not so simple to think. It is a lot of context when you think about it in a larger picture. And it's a necessity. Venture capital is a necessity. We need to keep pushing the boundaries. And it's not just venture capital from the VC standalone position. It's also venture capital from the corporate R&D arms. So corporate R&Ds are investing in companies and people to do certain things. And I know that, again, Google in Israel, when they want to test something internally, I know Google have, for example, I believe I'll get it wrong, but it's in this context. Within a month, you get X amount of hours to create your own product. And a lot of companies have that mentality of, you as an individual, you're not just working for me, but you can create your own product. And that's kind of encouraged in a way to a degree. Obviously, you need people working in the company, you want to improve them. But there's a lot of people that come out of companies, start their own company, and then another company will acquire them and then integrate them back into a team. And that also funnels more money into venture capital R&D spending.
No, it's fascinating. And as you think about kind of the next phase, what are the things that you feel like the finance ecosystem is pulling towards as we look forward? Do you think there will be more movement towards earlier stage, supporting more of these concept stage ideas, or is it going to be continuing to level up what we're already great at, which is scaling up technologies that have been proven, building out this R&D network? Like, where do you see sort of the pull in the local ecosystem?
I was thinking about that question earlier, not in the same way, but in the context of the global issue of job hiring right now, where the gap between graduate, junior to manager or senior associate, and with that in that realm, is kind of disappearing. So you're not going to, where you have people who are higher up now who are retaining their jobs and in their jobs, are they going to make new companies? Or what's going to happen to this younger generation who aren't going to be making companies? Or are they going to be making companies? And are they going to be good companies because they didn't work anywhere and they need to get jobs? So how is that gap going to cause an issue in the startup ecosystem? I think I need to speak to a greater economist to get a good sense of that. But I think here, at least, the way universities are positioned is they pivot very quickly, and they bring a lot of real world examples into things, and there's a lot of work towards that. It's always trying to foster intellect, and I think there'll be just a continuation of it. And I think external investments into Israel is a really incredible time to do it. It was an incredible time to do it beforehand. Those who invested in Israel 10 years ago would be sitting very well right now, even if it was just in the shekel, and how successful the shekel has been on the global currency, on the Forex. And I think outside investment is going to be huge, continue to do so, because again, in each industry, now that we have AI and we have all the major research centers are in the country, it's a really great place to foster new innovations and new ideas. And again, an encouragement of the individuals to do it. And there are workspaces, accelerators, programs, university programs, all pushing people to start companies, to create their own ideas, and then to facilitate that process. And maybe it'll just get more streamlined.
As I understand it, this is a key part of your work recently. You've just transitioned into a role that's really focused on helping connect the world with what's happening in Israel. So I'd love if you could share just a little bit more about your current work, why you made this transition coming out of tech and startup land. What drew you to this, and how are you helping? Because if I'm listening to this, I'm an active investor. Let's say I've got some tech company, they're in the defense space, or they've got a Jewish founder or somebody that's from Israel on the team. Like, this has been really helpful for me to be able to assess that deal more effectively, understand them a little bit better. But let's say I really want to come check out what's happening on the ground, see some of this locally, and experience the what was the word? The get to the point.
Tachlis.
The Tachlis. I want to experience the Tachlis myself.
Yeah, that's right.
How do you help me do that?
You just got to come here.
Just got to come.
Yeah, also to the non-Jewish world, like really the entire ecosystem of the world. Investors should come, just experience it and see it. And I guess that's, I moved into working with Israel265. I was running the B2B division of a high-tech company, and I wanted to be in a company that I felt was doing something more impactful to the greater good. And I guess I'm in a more comfortable position in which I can do that. I don't, rather than, these investment bankers or something working till 3 a.m. every night. I'm not doing that. I have my family. I have my wife. I want to have not a work-life balance per se. I'm a workaholic, so I work a lot, but a balance in which I can be there to see my kid grow up, spend time with my wife, and be with a company amongst really wonderful people who have the best intentions for the world and the best intentions internally, without kind of any toxic kind of areas there. And the company does amazing things in for-profit and non-profit. Non-profit, creating forests, helping build cities. I think, helping 30,000 people who needed food. Again, because of the war, helping soldiers where they need, with different things, helping fundraise for a whole load of different charities, whether it's cancer support or again, food banks for low economical areas, loads of wonderful things. And then a whole for-profit arm, which is this incredible news channel and bringing really great education to the world. And then a whole media channel and media arm, which has incredible capabilities in terms of video, UI, UX, and forefront of marketing and innovation. VR, augmented, web-based, all sorts of things. We're very open to doing all sorts of areas and bring out to clients. And then my being there and the discussion that we've created, this building this tour and the idea of bringing more investors to the country who aren't Jewish, who are in the evangelical Christian world. Now, I'm not as well versed in that area as my colleagues are at this point, but from what I understand, there are hundreds of millions of people who believe and understand Israel is an important factor in the world, which is I can appreciate, because I think in some areas of the world, who cares about any other country aside from your own country and what you're doing and what you're living on? Why do you have to care about anything? But we're in a global ecosystem now, so
and you are the poster child of that. Having you explained your background to me, Ty, Jewish parent, Israeli parents, grew up in the UK, time in Chicago, now back in Tel Aviv. Like, you're the poster child of it's a global world.
Yeah. And I was a digital nomad before digital nomad was a word. I was working abroad, Skyping people. And every time they were like, Skype, why am I doing this? And I'd Skype people from any place, any country, anywhere, and just sit somewhere and do it. That was a lot of fun. But what were we saying? So there's hundreds of millions of people who care about Israel as a country and understand its importance in a spiritual and historical, philosophical, ethical, moral, all these areas. They understand its importance, and they donate money to causes to help the country and to help bring people and build the economy. Why not invest? And I think it's just that they don't know. I think a lot of investors, wonderful people with great morals, great ethics, great values, have been very successful and could contribute a crazy amount of good through Israel. And there's a discussion that I'm having with different government ministries and VCs and stuff about Africa as well in that process, because there's also, I've met many companies that help Africa and other parts of the world. Why not invest? And I think they just don't know. I think they don't know that how capable and successful Israel is, because Israel is always and understandably for the last years that it's been existing right now, the Jewish world. and what's close to home. Israelis, Jews abroad, and so forth. But there is so much larger than that. And the country knows that, and the country tries to integrate that and tries to bring that in as best as possible. So I see that there's actually a huge and massive potential there. And especially because, if we can create a great technology, someone invests from abroad, create a great technology here, they bring it to their country, whether it's the US or a European country or somewhere else, or Asia, anywhere. They could bring that to their country and keep just creating wonderful business together that really moves the world forwards.
I love it. Well, links to Ben's background will be in the show notes, and would encourage anybody to reach out. Ben, thank you for taking the time to share some of your story, experience, perspective with us today. I look very much forward to our next conversation, and
Thank you.
I may just have to come visit soon.
Likewise, you definitely got to come visit. We'll set you up.
Thanks for listening to this episode of The Diligent Observer. I'm your host, Andrew, and if you're an angel investor looking for essential angel intel in 5 minutes every week, I think you'd enjoy my newsletter. I send my best stuff, interesting deals, and more straight to your inbox so you never miss a thing. Subscribe today at thediligentobserver.com.